Stop being nice to a narcissist. Do this instead. There comes a moment in every survivor's life when they look in the mirror and whisper, no more. No more silence, no more pleasing, no more shrinking to fit someone else's twisted illusion of control. And if you've ever danced with a narcissist, you know exactly what I mean. You gave your kindness, they saw weakness. You gave your loyalty, they saw leverage. You gave your love, and they weaponized it. But today, that ends, because from this moment forward, you're not going to be nice. You're going to be strategic. You're going to be strong. You're going to be unshakable. The time for being nice to a narcissist is over. Let's dive into what you do instead. 6 key actions that will reclaim your soul, your power, and your peace. Replace niceness with boundaries. There's a lie you've been sold your entire life. A lie that says if you're just nice enough, if you keep the peace, if you avoid conflict, you'll be loved, you'll be respected, you'll be safe. But the truth, that belief is what keeps people stuck in cycles of abuse, begging for crumbs of decency from someone who doesn't even see them as human. A narcissist doesn't interpret your niceness as compassion. They interpret it as a green light. They see it as weakness, as permission, as a doorway they can walk through, dragging in chaos, manipulation, and gaslighting. The more nice you are, the deeper they dig their claws, because in their world, kindness isn't respected, it's used. Let's get one thing straight. Boundaries are not rude. Boundaries are not cruel. Boundaries are your declaration to the world that says, this is what I will and will not tolerate. You don't need to scream. You don't need to fight. You just need to be clear. And when you're clear, the narcissist will either fall apart or fall away. You've been taught to explain your no, to soften your no, to feel guilty for having a no. But no is a full sentence. No is your power word. No is the shield that stops emotional bullets. And when you use it with authority, you send a message louder than any scream. I will no longer be controlled. The narcissist will test you, make no mistake. They will rage, guilt trip, and manipulate the moment you put up a boundary. Why? Because boundaries break their spell. Boundaries shatter their illusion of control. And that terrifies them. They've been feeding off your compliance for so long. They don't know what to do when you suddenly become unavailable. This is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming conscious. Conscious of your energy, conscious of your value, conscious of your right to say, I matter too. That shift, from pleasing to protecting, is what will change your life. Because when you stop giving away your power, you start taking your life back piece by piece. You don't owe anyone 24/7 access to your soul. You don't owe endless forgiveness to someone who repeats the same betrayal. You don't owe silence to keep the peace, especially when that peace only exists to keep them comfortable while you suffer. Boundaries are the act of choosing yourself in a world that taught you to abandon yourself. When you enforce a boundary, you are not being difficult. You are being deliberate. Deliberate about who gets your time. Deliberate about what energy you allow in your space. Deliberate about your healing. And the truth is, healing offends those who benefited from your brokenness. Let it offend them. You've spent so much time trying not to hurt their feelings, trying not to upset them, trying not to trigger their rage. But ask yourself, who was protecting you from the damage they caused? It's time you stop playing protector to the one who was tearing you down. It's time you guard yourself. Here's the irony. The moment you stop being nice and start being real, you begin to attract people who truly see you. The right people respect boundaries. The wrong ones resist them. And nothing reveals a narcissist faster than the word no. Watch what happens when you stop explaining and start enforcing. Boundaries aren't just protection. They're purification. They filter out what doesn't belong in your life. They reveal what was hidden in plain sight. They strip away illusion, and yes, it will hurt. You will grieve the version of yourself that thought love meant sacrifice. But the pain of growth is far better than the slow death of betrayal. If you're afraid to set a boundary, ask yourself what's scarier, losing them or losing you, because one of those choices leads to healing, the other leads to self-erasure, and the narcissist is counting on you to choose them over you. They're banking on your fear. Don't give them the satisfaction. This is your turning point. This is where you draw the line, not with a whisper, but with a roar, not from fear, but from fire, because the version of you that begged, chased, and over-explained is done. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You need to honor it. Boundaries are not walls to keep love out. They're gates that let the right kind of love in, love that respects, love that honors, love that builds. And when you live with strong boundaries, you're not just surviving a narcissist. You're outgrowing them, and that's the most powerful thing you can do. Stop explaining yourself. There comes a moment when you realize that no amount of explaining will ever satisfy someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. A narcissist doesn't ask for your explanation because they care. They ask so they can manipulate, distort, and dismantle it. Your words become ammunition in their hands. The more you try to clarify, the deeper they twist the knife. Every time you explain yourself to someone who only wants control, you give them a seat at the table of your mind, and they won't sit quietly. They'll rearrange your thoughts, question your sanity, and make you doubt your own reality. You'll find yourself justifying your tears, rationalizing your pain, and defending your right to simply feel. That's not love. That's psychological warfare. The narcissist isn't confused. They're calculating. They pretend not to understand just to keep you talking, spinning, backpedaling. Why? Because as long as you're explaining yourself, you're not defending yourself. You're not setting boundaries. You're not walking away. You're still in the ring, fighting a battle they've already rigged against you. You think if you can just say it the right way, just find the perfect words, then they'll see your heart. Then they'll care. Then they'll stop. But they won't, because it was never about clarity. It was about control, and your long, emotional explanations are fuel to the fire of their manipulation. They feed on your need to be understood. Let go of that need, let it burn, let it die. You are not obligated to explain your decisions to someone who's never honored your truth. You don't need their approval to grow. You don't need their permission to heal. The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment you start reclaiming your power. Silence is your weapon, calm is your armor, and detachment is your freedom. When you stop explaining, something amazing happens. The narcissist loses their script. They don't know how to handle silence. They can't twist what you don't give them, and they'll try to bait you, provoke you, guilt you back into the trap. But if you stay silent, you stay sovereign. This doesn't mean you stop communicating. It means you stop justifying. You stop turning your pain into a debate. You stop playing defense in a game that was designed to keep you losing. You begin to recognize that your peace is not up for discussion. Your growth is not up for approval. Your choices are not up for negotiation. You are not a child on trial. You don't owe a narcissist an emotional PowerPoint presentation every time you make a decision that honors your worth. You don't have to explain why you walked away, why you set boundaries, why you blocked them. The truth is simple: because you had to, because your soul was suffocating, and because you finally realized you deserve better. Stop letting guilt run the show. Guilt is their favorite weapon. They'll say, "You've changed," and you have. "You're overreacting." No, you're finally reacting. You're being dramatic. No, you're being free, and none of that needs an explanation. It just needs action. Every time you explain yourself, you reopen the wound, you re-engage with chaos. You tell the narcissist, "I still care what you think of me." That's the hook they're waiting for. And they'll use it to pull you right back in. So next time they demand an answer, try giving them this: nothing. Not every accusation deserves a response. Not every lie deserves a rebuttal. Not every manipulation deserves your energy. You don't have to match their chaos with clarity. You don't have to fight fire with words. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away and not look back. This is about emotional discipline. about learning to sit with the discomfort of not being liked or understood. Because people who thrive on control will always villainize your freedom, and that's okay. You're not here to be understood by manipulators. You're here to liberate yourself from their grip. When you stop explaining, you step into self-trust. You stop outsourcing your worth to someone else's opinion. You begin to walk through the world with a quiet kind of power. A power that says, I know who I am, I know what I need, and I don't need to convince you of either. The narcissist will rage against your silence. They'll throw insults like grenades, hoping you'll break, hoping you'll return to the familiar role, the apologizer, the peacemaker, the explainer. But you're not that person anymore. You're done with the courtroom, done with the trial, done with trying to prove your worth to someone who was never qualified to judge it. So when they come knocking with questions, with accusations, with bait, don't open the door. Don't engage, don't explain, just keep walking, keep rising, keep growing, because your silence isn't weakness. It's warrior strength, and in that strength you'll find the freedom you were always meant for. Use gray rock. Starve their addiction to drama. Narcissists aren't just toxic. They're addicted to chaos, addicted to power, addicted to the emotional fireworks they ignite in others. The drama, the conflict, the reactions, they feed on it like oxygen. So if you truly want to break the cycle, there's one powerful move that flips the script. Go gray rock. Gray rock isn't just a strategy, it's a mindset. It means you stop being a source of entertainment, attention, and energy. It means you strip away the emotional fireworks they thrive on and give them nothing but a flat, neutral response. You become boring, unengaging, predictable to them, useless. When you become a gray rock, you stop being a target. Because narcissists don't want calm, they want chaos. They don't want peace, they want power. They'll poke, provoke, and prod until you explode. They'll twist your words, gaslight your memory, and flip every argument so that you're always the one to blame. But if you give them nothing, you rob them of their game. It will feel unnatural at first. You've spent your life explaining, defending, reacting. That emotional roller coaster became your normal. But what if peace felt like silence instead of screaming? What if power looked like indifference instead of intensity? What if walking away didn't mean losing, but winning? The narcissist wants a show. They want drama. They want the whole emotional circus. But the moment you stop performing, they lose control. And they hate that. You're not yelling. They'll try harder. You're not crying. They'll dig deeper. You're not defending yourself. They'll throw everything at you to make you break. But that's how you know it's working. Gray rock doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop feeding. You take back your emotional resources and reinvest them in your healing. You give them nothing they can use, nothing they can twist, nothing they can spin into the next episode of their endless drama series. It's not about revenge, it's about release. They'll say you're cold, distant, uncaring, but the truth is, you finally stopped offering your emotions to someone who used them as weapons. You're not being mean, you're being wise. Because you finally realize that peace isn't something they can give you. It's something you claim when you no longer need them to validate your pain. The more boring you become to them, the more powerful you become to yourself. You reclaim your ability to walk into a storm and not let it move you. You become grounded, centered, focused. They throw chaos, and you give stillness. They shout, and you whisper nothing back. They rage, and you stand unbothered. But don't be fooled. They'll test you, they'll bait you. They'll say the one thing they know will trigger you. Why? Because they've studied you. They know your buttons, and they'll press every single one. But now you're a different person. Now you've unplugged those buttons. Now you just observe. And stay silent. Silence doesn't mean surrender. It means strategy. It means discipline. It means mastery. You're no longer on their emotional leash. You've cut the cord, and that kind of control, that kind of emotional sovereignty, it's what makes you untouchable. Let them flail, let them provoke, let them spiral. Because the longer you remain steady, the faster they unravel. You see, narcissists are loudest when they're losing control, But you don't need to raise your voice to match theirs. You just need to hold your ground and say nothing. Your lack of reaction is not weakness. It's lethal. It shows them they no longer have power over your nervous system. They can't hijack your peace. They can't dictate your mood. You've pulled the plug on the drama, and without your energy, their fire dies out. You become the mirror that no longer reflects their delusion. Gray rock isn't just for them. It's for you. It teaches you to detach with dignity, to exit with elegance, to recover your energy and focus it where it belongs. On your healing, your goals, your life. It's the bridge between surviving them and building something beautiful without them. And here's the truth. The moment you master gray rock, you don't just escape the narcissist. You evolve past the need for their validation. You stop playing their game entirely, and that's when the real transformation begins. Not when you react, but when you refuse to respond. Mirror their true self. Silently, there's nothing more terrifying to a narcissist than their own reflection. Not the curated image they show the world, the real one, the selfishness, the lies, the manipulations, the cruelty. They've spent a lifetime hiding it, running from it, projecting it onto others. But when you become the mirror, not through words, but through silence, they can't escape it anymore. You don't need to confront them with accusations. You don't need to scream, "I know what you are." You just stop playing the role they assign to you, and when you stop reacting, stop enabling, stop absorbing their chaos, they start seeing themselves more clearly than they ever have. And they hate it. The power in silence is that it doesn't just stop the noise, it reflects the truth. Because without someone to manipulate, they're left with their own emptiness. Without someone to impress, they're left with their own insecurity. Without someone to dominate, they're left with their own weakness. And that mirror is brutal. You don't need revenge. You don't need to expose them. Your healing, your growth, your refusal to dance in their delusion is the exposure. Because every time you choose stillness over drama, clarity over confusion, power over pity, you shine a light on what they've worked so hard to keep in the dark. They can't stand it. They'll try to project it back on you. Call you the narcissist, accuse you of being cold, say you've changed, and you have, but not in the way they mean. You've changed because you see, you've awakened, and now your presence holds up a mirror to their dysfunction without you even trying. This isn't about being better than them. It's about becoming immune to them. You're no longer reacting from pain. You're responding from purpose. You're no longer trying to win them back. You're winning yourself back. And in that transformation, they lose their grip on you. Mirroring a narcissist's true self doesn't mean mimicking their behavior. It means stopping the supply. It means no longer playing the good guy, the fixer, the apologizer. It means holding up a silent boundary that screams, "I will not lower myself just to make you feel powerful." You begin to show them, through your detachment, exactly who they are. Not with arguments, not with evidence, but through the absence of your former self. The version of you that tolerated the lies, the version that justified the pain, the version that begged to be seen, that version is gone. And that's what haunts them. When you stop playing along, you dismantle the illusion. The narcissist thrives in their carefully constructed world of control and blame. But you're no longer a character in that play. You've left the stage, and now they're exposed, naked, alone, and furious at your exit. You don't need to get loud to make a statement. You don't need to burn bridges. Your silence sets them on fire. Every time you choose not to engage, you force them to confront their own emptiness. Every time you choose peace over performance, you reveal the hollowness of their power. And yes, it will trigger them. They'll lash out. They'll smear your name. They'll try to drag you back into the script. But remember, their rage is proof of your progress. Their desperation is confirmation that your silence is speaking volume. And deep down, they know they're being mirrored. They know they're being exposed without a single word. And they'll try to regain control in every way they can: pity, guilt, rage, charm. But nothing shakes a narcissist more than being met with stillness. Stillness forces them to sit with themselves, and they've spent their entire lives running from that. This is where your power sharpens, not by becoming like them, but by becoming unshakable. When you operate from emotional mastery, you don't just survive them, you transcend them. You become the one thing they never expected, unavailable, so don't waste energy trying to convince them of who they are. Let your evolution do the talking. Let your boundaries do the work. Let your silence be the mirror they never wanted to face. Because when they finally see themselves in your detachment, you won't need to say a word. They'll already know. And in that moment, you've won. Not because you destroyed them, but because you refuse to be destroyed by them. That's not just healing, that's transformation, and it's the most powerful reflection you'll ever give. Show emotional mastery, not emotional availability. Narcissists don't want love. They want access. They want a front row seat to your emotional life so they can push buttons, twist reactions, and control outcomes. That's why your emotional availability isn't seen as a gift by them. It's seen as leverage. And once they get access, they start exploiting every inch of your heart. You think being open will create understanding. You think if they see your vulnerability, they'll protect it. But you're playing by the rules of real love, and they're playing a game of power. That's why emotional availability doesn't disarm a narcissist. It empowers them. They don't hear your heart. They hear opportunity. You open up. And they weaponize your trauma. You express your needs, and they mock your weakness. You set a boundary, and they accuse you of being selfish. It's a pattern, and it's not random. It's deliberate. The more emotional access you give them, the more ammunition you hand them. They take your sincerity and turn it into sabotage. That's why the key is not shutting down, but mastering up. You don't need to become cold. You need to become clear. Emotional mastery isn't about becoming numb. It's about becoming untouchable. You choose what gets in. You choose what gets out. You guard your peace like a lion guards its territory. It starts with recognizing your value. You are not a project. You are not a therapist. You are not an emotional punching bag. You are a soul with depth, fire, purpose. And not everyone deserves a seat at your table, especially those who show up to rob the feast and poison the wine. Emotional mastery means you stop over-explaining, you stop defending your feelings, you stop apologizing for your intuition. You feel what you feel and you own it without shame, because your emotions are not up for judgment. They are signals, not sins. And if someone can't respect that, they don't get access. Narcissists hate emotional mastery. They hate it because they can't control it. When you're calm while they rage, quiet while they provoke, grounded while they spin chaos, they lose their grip. They can't find a way in, and they'll try everything to pull you back into reaction mode. That's how you know you're winning. You used to cry, beg, explain, repeat yourself, question yourself. Now you sit still. You observe. You stay centered. You don't fight to be understood by someone who's committed to misunderstanding you. You don't offer your emotions like a buff. They earn your presence through respect, or they lose it completely. This isn't about building walls. It's about building filters. You decide who gets your full heart. You decide who earns your trust. You decide what behavior is allowed in your energy. This is the shift from survival to sovereignty, from emotional exhaustion to emotional excellence. Mastery also means responding, not reacting. Narcissists want you to explode, break, lose it. They want to drag you into their storm. But when you stop reacting, you make them face the storm alone. That silence, that pause, that presence, it's not weakness, it's a warning. It says, I see you and I refuse to play. You are no longer led by emotion. You lead with intention. You show up with clarity, confidence, and calm. That rattles them, that breaks their rhythm. They can't use what they can't predict. And your unpredictability, your detachment, your emotional stability, that becomes your superpower. But here's the kicker. Emotional mastery also means mastering yourself. Your triggers, your wounds, your past. You begin doing the deep work. You stop needing validation from people who thrive on devaluing you. You become your own healer, your own protector, your own damn hero. And once you taste that kind of power, you'll never hand it back. Because when you master your emotions, you master your life. The narcissist no longer controls your highs and lows. They no longer dictate your self-worth. You don't live on the emotional roller coaster anymore. You own the whole damn park. This is the point where freedom begins, not when they change, not when they apologize, but when you stop offering your soul to someone who only wanted your struggle. When you own your energy, they lose theirs. And that's when the game ends. For good. Walk away without closure. You are the closure. Let's get one thing straight. You will never get closure from a narcissist. Never. Not the kind you're looking for. Not the honesty, not the accountability, not the apology. Because that would require them to see what they did, take ownership of it, and care about how it affected you. And narcissists don't do that. They rewrite reality, not repair it. You've been waiting for that one text, that one conversation, that one final moment where it all makes sense. You're holding your breath, hoping they'll suddenly see your worth. That they'll wake up, that they'll explain why they hurt you, why they discarded you like you meant nothing. But that moment, it's not coming, and that's your liberation, because closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you. You become your own damn closure. You stop looking for peace in the same place you lost it. You stop bleeding out while begging the one who cut you to hand you the bandage. You don't need their words. You don't need their understanding. You need to walk. The narcissist lives in a loop. No growth, no depth. Just recycling pain onto the next person who loves them. They won't change because they don't think they need to. So every time you go back looking for a real ending, you get dragged into another beginning of gaslighting, of confusion, of emotional starvation. Closure, real closure, is when you stop giving a damn about why they did it. You realize it doesn't matter. What matters is you survived. You loved deeply. You showed up. You gave your heart, and they didn't know what to do with it. That's not your shame. That's your strength. That's the kind of heart warriors are made of. You walk away not because you're heartless, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop bleeding for someone who brings knives to your soul. That decision. That's your power. That's your awakening. That's the beginning of a new story. One that doesn't include someone who was never written in your future. There's a moment, after all the tears, after all the late nights, after all the journaling and therapy and inner screaming, where it clicks. You stop chasing the why. You stop needing the explanation. You just feel a wave of peace. It's quiet. It's strong. It doesn't announce itself. It just settles in your bones, and you know you're done. You stop romanticizing what you thought it was. You stop bargaining with memories. You stop explaining their behavior to your own heart. You see the relationship for what it really was, not what you hoped it could be. And in that raw truth, you find something powerful, clarity. Narcissists don't give closure because closure is a gift. It's grace, it's empathy, and they are bankrupt in all three. They survive on avoidance, not accountability. They flee when the mirror gets too clear. So the longer you wait for them to come clean, the longer you stay dirty with their lies. Let it go. You don't need an apology to heal. You don't need their validation to rise. Your growth, your wholeness, your future, that's the proof that you won. You heal in silence. You rise in strength. You move on in purpose. You don't even need to slam the door. Just lock it and throw away the damn key. And if they come back, if they reach out, test the waters, drop a breadcrumb, you don't rage, you don't explain, you don't play the game, you nod, you smile, you walk away, because you're not the same person anymore. You don't crave closure from chaos. You've built peace from within. You are the closure. Every step forward, every boundary enforced, every silent night where you chose yourself over the past, every moment you refuse to go back. You are writing the final chapter with your actions, not their words. And that chapter, it's about freedom. It's about healing. It's about you. You walking away without closure is the ultimate closure. It's the loudest silence they'll ever hear, because narcissists don't fear confrontation. They fear being forgotten. They fear irrelevance. They fear the moment you realize they were never the source of your worth. They were just the lesson. So stop waiting. Stop wishing. Stop rereading old messages, hoping for a sign. The sign is this: you're done. And you don't need a goodbye to walk into your rebirth. You are not what they broke. You are what rose from it. You don't owe a narcissist your light. You owe it to yourself. This isn't just about surviving a narcissist. It's about resurrecting yourself from the ashes they left you in. It's about remembering who you were before the manipulation, before the gaslighting, before the silent treatments and the lies. It's about stepping back into your power, not with revenge in your heart, but with peace in your soul. You've been too nice, too patient, too forgiving. You gave chances when you should have walked. You offered love when they gave you cruelty. You tried to heal someone who didn't want to be healed. You thought your loyalty could change them. But the truth is, it only drained you. Now you know better, and when you know better, you do better. You don't waste your energy trying to fix broken people who are committed to breaking others. You don't keep setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You don't hand your heart to someone who only sees it as a tool for control. Because here's the truth: the most dangerous thing you can ever become to a narcissist is unavailable emotionally, mentally. Spiritually, when you no longer react, no longer explain, no longer dance for their approval, that's when your power returns. That's when they shrink and you rise. The power move is not retaliation. It's elevation. It's healing so deeply that the version of you who tolerated that abuse no longer exists. That version was necessary, but it was temporary. The real you, the awakened, unshakable, soul-on, fire version of you is ready to step forward. So no more playing nice, no more shrinking to fit their comfort zone, no more waiting for an apology that will never come. You're not just walking away from them. You're walking into yourself. You're walking into freedom, into clarity, into love. Not the love they pretended to give, but the kind you give yourself fully and fiercely. Let your silence scream your boundaries. Let your energy speak your truth. Let your growth be the response they never expected. And when they look for the old you, make sure they never find them again. That version of you died in the fire, and the one who rose is untouchable. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them kindness. You don't owe them another word. What you owe is to the warrior within you, to never again betray yourself for someone who couldn't even value your existence. This is your moment. This is your chapter. And from here on out, you write your story in ink made of truth, strength, and unstoppable love for yourself. You are not broken, you are reborn, and the world is waiting for the version of you that they were never strong enough to destroy. Now, go. Don't just walk away, rise.